Welcome to AI Podcast. I'm Evan, and today we're digging into a new EMNLP paper called Enhancing LLM Reasoning via Collective Consensus.
I'm Maya, and I love that title already. Collective consensus sounds like a committee meeting for models, so what's the short version?
Short version. The authors led by Yangyifan Shuo show that you can improve reasoning by letting several language models brainstorm solution steps. Then have the group quietly vote on each step using a simple score of how unsurprising it is, and they also give more speaking time to the models that keep contributing good steps. The result is steady gains across math, logic, and common sense without training a special verifier or writing long judging prompts.
Okay, two things. First, unsurprising, what does that mean in model terms? And second, how do they decide who gets more speaking time?
Unsurprising here means the model's perplexity. Think of it like this. If I read your sentence and go, yeah, that sounds like something I would have said, I'm not surprised. Low surprise means high agreement. They average that sense of agreement across the different models for each candidate step. That becomes the step's score. Then for speaking time, they check which models' proposals keep making it into the top beam of the search and allocate a larger share of the next round's samples to those models.
So, it's a panel of experts. Each suggests the next move. Everyone else gives a quick gut check, and the moderator gives more time to whoever is on a roll. That's intuitive.
Exactly. The paper calls the whole thing collaborative beam search. It looks like regular beam search, but the beams are fed by multiple models, and the pruning is done by the group's consensus rather than a separately trained judge.
Why is this needed, though? Haven't we got self-consistency and those prompt-based critique methods?
We do, but those have trade-offs. Self-consistency just samples a bunch of full solutions and votes at the end. It can miss good partial ideas because it never coordinates mid-flight. The prompt-based judges ask the model to critique its own steps, which can be brittle, long, and sensitive to prompt wording. And external verifiers like process reward models work well in narrow domains, but are expensive to train and often stumble on harder problems.
Right, so the gap is a general way to judge steps that does not require a trained verifier or a giant prompt, and also gives you more diversity than sampling from a single model.
That's it. The authors bring diversity by mixing several open models which were trained differently, and they keep the judging simple with that average low surprise score.
Walk me through the loop like I am solving a puzzle with a team. How does one round play out?
Picture 4 partial solutions on the whiteboard. For each one, every model proposes a concrete next step, like step 2, compute the difference. Then every model asks itself, if I were writing this solution, how likely is that step? Low surprise means I could have written it. They average those scores across models, keep only the most credible paths, and repeat until the solution is complete.
And the dynamic quota part, that sounds like tournament-style coaching.
Perfect analogy. If a model's suggestions keep making the cut, the coach gives it more possessions in the next quarter. If a model is cold, it still gets a few chances for diversity, but fewer than the hot hand. That balance of quality and diversity is a big reason the method works.
Where did they test this?
A spread of tasks. Math word problems like GSM 8K, logic puzzles like Proofwriter and Pronto QA, and a bit of common sense such as strategy QA and date understanding. They compared against strong baselines like self-consistency, standard beam search, and recent multi-agent or judge-based systems.
And the headline result is what?
Consistent improvements, roughly 4 to 5 percentage points on average over the strongest baselines. And a nice detail is that on a harder slice of the math benchmark, variants that rely on a trained reward model sag, while collaborative beam search stays sturdy.
So the consensus check generalizes a bit better when the going gets tough. That's encouraging. What about runtime? Because this sounds compute hungry.
It is not free. You are sampling steps from multiple models, but the paper shows a solid accuracy to time trade-off. partly because they avoid long judge prompts and they do not train extra networks. Think of it as paying for structured exploration rather than paying to build a separate referee.
I like that framing. You are buying smarter search at inference time, not a new model. Any ablation insights that stood out?
3. First, using the group's consensus beats using a single model's surprise score. Second, the multi-model setup matters. Different models are good at different kinds of steps. Third, the dynamic quota is critical. Without it, weaker models can swamp the search.
Let's make the core ideas even more concrete. Suppose the problem is to find the median of a list in a story question. How would the team dynamic help?
One model might be great at extracting the numbers from the story, another is precise about sorting and indexing, and a third tends to check parity, meaning odd or even counts. Collaborative beam search can stitch those strengths together, because it rewards the step that the group agrees looks like a sensible next move.
That resonates. Like a newsroom where the reporter drafts a paragraph, the copy editor and fact-checker both glance at it, and if it passes the sniff test, it goes on the page.
Exactly. And if one reporter keeps filing usable paragraphs, they get more assignments that day.
Let's talk authors briefly. You mentioned Shuo as lead. Who else should listeners remember, and where are they from?
Shuo is a key co-author, and the work comes from the University of Chinese Academy of Sciences and Wuhan AI Research.
Nice. Now a gentle reality check. Where might this approach struggle?
First, if your models are near clones, you risk an echo chamber. Consensus among similar voices is not very informative. Second, perplexity is not truth. A fluent but wrong step can look unsurprising to the group. Third, compute adds up, especially if you scale to long problems. And finally, the evaluation is mostly in English on popular benchmarks. So broader domains and languages remain open.
If I were rolling this into a product team, what would a pragmatic pilot look like?
Start small. Pick 2 or 3 complementary open models rather than one, wire up sentence-level step generation, and the average surprise score as the judge. Add the dynamic quota so the best contributor gets more samples, then log where consensus correlates with correctness, and where it does not. In parallel, bake in a cheap cross-check for math that might be unit checks or verifying intermediate values with a calculator.
Good call. A tiny bit of structure can catch those fluent but wrong moments. Any thoughts on scaling this to bigger models?
The paper reports that it still adds value with larger models, so the team sport idea does not vanish when players are stronger, but I would tune the sampling budget carefully and maybe route which models participate based on the input. No need to invite everyone to every meeting.
What about future research directions that feel ripe?
3 jump out. Better consensus signals that combine surprise with lightweight checks, automatic model routing so you pick the right team per question, and budget-aware scheduling that adapts how many samples you draw based on how quickly the group converges.
I would add multilingual and tool use settings. Seeing whether the method helps a model decide when to call a calculator or a search tool would be very useful.
Totally agree. The general recipe is model teams guided by simple, shareable signals that should travel beyond pure text reasoning.
Before we wrap, give me the one-line takeaway for a busy listener.
Treat inference as a team sport. Let several models propose the next step, have the group score how natural each step feels, and give more turns to the models that keep moving the solution forward.
And my ad, you get steady gains without training a new judge, but you have to manage diversity and compute to avoid an echo chamber and a big bill.
Well said. That was Enhancing LLM Reasoning via Collective Consensus from EMNLP. Links are in the show notes.
Thanks for listening to AI Podcast. If you enjoyed this research coffee chat, share it with a colleague and tell us what paper you want next.
Until next time, keep your models collaborating and your reasoning steps crisp.